Thank you, Dr. Mattei. Our next speaker is Dr. Jing Jing Qiu. She's also an assistant professor of general and organic chemistry at San Francisco State University.
Thanks for the invitation, and it's really honored and great to be here. So currently my research focuses on renewable energy. So I'm trying to study how to use electrochemistry to generate renewable energy and try to reduce the pollutant problems. And electrochemistry is also widely used to study batteries and a lot of new technologies that you can hear over the media. So about my STEM career, actually it took a lot of detours. So I didn't know what I'm really interested into, what's going to be my future career. So I made a lot of explorations. So back in college, I was a chemical engineering major because I thought, okay, I'm going to produce perfumes like many girls want to do, like cosmetics, that should be fun. And later on, I found this is not what I thought about chemical engineering. And I did some undergraduate research in a research lab where I was introduced to nanoparticles. That's really fancy because for metal, you will see shiny stuff, but there I see the colorful nanoparticles, which introduced me to a new world. And then, therefore, I applied to graduate school where I studied the color property of this nanoparticle in their nano regime. With our eyes, we cannot see that, but with optical microscope or some advanced tool, we can see this teeny tiny cute stuff. So that made me really interested. And then later on, I tried to explore the application of this nanomaterial, either metal or semiconductor. So that's when I stepped into the renewable energy field in my postdoc training. Along the road, I changed from chemical engineering to physical chemistry and then to electrochemistry. And also I did exploration. For example, I did my minor in mathematical finance, really far away from STEM field, but I'm trying to see, oh, is that a field that may give me more fun? Is that a field that's really interesting? I can learn more knowledge. So I did that exploration. And in addition to like the lab research experience, I did internship in a pharmacy. I realized that's not something I'm looking for. And I did a short internship in a factory to see how chemical is produced in mass scale. And I know that's not what I'm looking for. So I'm trying to see what I don't like and what I like. There are different routes. So I finally find, okay, the renewable energy research is something I'm really interested in, and I want to be professor so I can communicate with students at the same time I can do research.
Thank you, Dr. Qiu, sorry. And finally, our last but not least speaker is Mrs. Samantha Hallis, who is a public health microbiologist that works for the County of Orange.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be back here. I also spoke last year. I started my, I guess, my interest in STEM in high school, taking an environmental science class. And I mean, I'd always liked science, but there was something that I felt more passionate about and connected to when I took environmental science, which I feel like was not a super common elective at the time. And I really liked it, but I also liked chemistry. So I went to undergraduate for environmental chemistry. And I really enjoyed my studies. But then when I got out of school, it was actually pretty challenging to find a job in that field. So I ended up working for Hewlett Packard and making printer ink, which I knew wasn't really what I wanted to do, but it was a job and I needed to do something. And then I'd always wanted to go to graduate school. So I worked there for a couple years, and then I went back for my PhD at UCLA. And I studied environmental health sciences because I wanted to be a little bit more health focused and a little bit less kind of, I guess, like industry focused. So I switched gears a little bit and went to the School of Public Health. And while I was there, I found out about public health laboratories, and I kind of straddled the field between chemistry and microbiology during my time there. And I did some research on biofiltration. And so I measured how that affected odors at wastewater treatment plants. And I looked at the microorganism community. And then I also looked at the chemistry. And then when I finished my PhD, I trained as a public health microbiologist and started my career at Orange County Public Health Lab in 2015. And I've been working there since then. And I'm now in the virology serology department. And it's been a pretty wild ride for the last year since with the COVID pandemic. And yeah, so I would say that I also did not take a particularly linear path, which seems to be a common theme here.
All right, thank you guys all for your wonderful introductions. But now that we're all introduced, I'll start with some open-ended questions. So the format of this is that I'll be asking like 4 open-ended questions for our panel to discuss like some STEM opportunities and difficulties. And the Q&A from the audience will come at the end after like all 4 questions. So for each of these questions, like any of you guys can start talking whenever you guys want. So our first, when did you first become interested in STEM? Any of you guys can start talking. I think you guys both, or I think you guys all answered these 2 questions. Yeah, so I think I'll just move on.
Sorry, I think that I led everybody on that path.
Yeah.
I was so enthusiastic and so excited about my introduction that I already talked about everything. Sorry about that. I think it was my
That's
fault.
absolutely fine, I think. It was informative, and we can just move on to the actual good questions. So for our first question, what are the best resources for high school students that are interested in the STEM career?
I would advise high school students to take a variety of science classes and to make time for different science electives and maybe not just the ones that are minimally required. I would try different fields and get some experience for what you like. And also, I mean, panels like this are great. You get to find out about a lot of careers that I certainly was not aware of in high school. I mean, I really don't think I even knew that there were public health labs, you know, until graduate school. I didn't know about civil engineering until I was partway through college. I mean, there's a lot of great fields out there that, you know, they're not very well covered in high school. So, I mean, like, I think events like this where you see different types of people's careers are very helpful as well.
So for my personal suggestion is if you want to step into STEM career, so you also want to consider what is the job market by that time, because you want to learn something that's helpful, that can give you a good job, no matter it's in industry or academia. So when I was a high school student, at that time, the word nanotechnology just becomes so popular. People study to care about that. But now if you look at now, the first FDA approved nanoparticle-based therapy has been approved in 2018. So that's around like 18 years time from the time I was a high school student until I was now in STEM career. So you need to think about in the future, what is the field that is developing really fast that needs more STEM like professionals. So talking about like our daily life, when I was in graduate school, that time I heard about the research about quantum dot. And now you can buy a quantum dot TV in Best Buy and the price becomes cheaper and cheaper. So you want to see how fast the technology is developing and how STEM is developing. You want to use a forward-looking pace, and the media and the news, especially technology-based news, can give you like a forward thinking. What is happening right now, what is happening around you, what is needed for a STEM professional in the future. I think that's really important to give you some future vision. And if you can find something that really interests you, for example, I'm interested in electrochemistry, and nowadays the battery is a big topic, and people who work in electrochemistry are more and more needed. So once you focus on the field that you are really interested in, you can try to search more resources in that specific direction. So that would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I'd like to build on that. So I'm in mathematics, and as I mentioned earlier, I decided to study mathematics very late, say, in my career. It was already at the end of my master program, and I was about to start my PhD program. And the reason was that I had no idea what you could do with a degree in math. Like in my mind, I thought that all you could do was to become a teacher. That's it. I had no idea about the potential of mathematics. So what I usually do at the beginning of the semester when I teach calculus, and in general in my classes, I have a large variety of students, is to tell them to go and look at the websites of some professional societies so one of them, for instance, is the association, the Mathematical Association, the American Mathematical Association. Another one is the Society for Industrial and Applied Mathematics. And then the reason why I usually suggest I'm going to post the website in the chat later, but the reason why I tell my students to do that is because on the homepage, they usually have the main news about what the research that people is doing right now that is really cool, and you can see what math can do, and that's really exciting. But also on this website, you have sections for career opportunities. So you have like some links to internships, so you can see what's out there, and you can see what people are want in terms of a job market. Also, I have two other websites to recommend, and one of them is the Association for Women in Mathematics, and the other is the National Mathematics Alliance. And the reason why I'm mentioning these two programs is because both of them have a mentorship program. If you, as a high school student, enroll, you will be paired with a mentor who can help you to give you some advice and some resources in case you decide to pursue a career in mathematics, or they will put you in contact with somebody who can do that for you. So I think that it's really important right now that you're at that stage of your life where you're trying to understand what you want to do, that you try to get as many pieces of information as you can. So don't be afraid, but enroll in those mentorship programs and really try to find somebody who's a senior and who can give you some advice or can direct you to the right resources. And then also another thing that I suggest always is to go and have a look at the websites of like the national labs of NASA. Have a look at the research departments that are there. Have a look at what they are doing, and have a look at the job opportunities to see, you know, if you want to work for NASA, for instance, or for a national lab, have a look at what they're doing there. And yeah, I think that these are my 2 cents for this question.
Thank you. Thank you for your responses. Move on to the next question.
Sorry, I just want to add some detailed information regarding chemistry. So if you are interested in chemistry, the NSF fund the ACS seed program. So high school student can apply to work in a research lab to see what the STEM field looks like for chemistry.
And Dr. Mattei also linked the resources that she was talking about in the chat, if you guys want to check that out. All right, question 2. Was there ever a time your gender was an obstacle to you in your career? Personal.
Sorry, I was busy copying and pasting all the links. So I have to say that I've never seen it as an obstacle, but I clearly saw the difference in treatment and opportunities that I had versus what my male colleagues had. That for sure. But I never seen it as a proper obstacle, but I'm a very positive person. So yeah, but starting in college, when I enrolled in engineering, I think that there were probably 5, 6 girls in my classroom, and then it was just males. And then, of course, as you go further in the field, specifically in academia, you see that gap getting bigger and bigger. Like even now, I go to some smaller conferences where there are like, I don't know, 100, 120 participants. And sometimes I'm the only woman, or there is another woman in the room, and that's it. So you can really see the difference. But personally, I have never seen it as an obstacle. Probably also because in every position that I cover, I try to support. I always try to be part of clubs, and specifically in mathematics, we have many students organizations or and I always try to be part of that. So I always felt I was part of something, and therefore I never see my gender as an obstacle. But that was my experience.
Thank you for sharing. Does anyone have anything else to add?
So I don't treat my gender as an obstacle, but sometimes I receive the stereotypes. So for example, people usually have the stereotype, oh, girls are less smarter compared to guys, and they are not certain for like STEM fields. I don't think it's true. So because the stereotype is built upon the history, right? It's because it used to be less women in the STEM field, so that's why people think they are not suitable. But the times have changed, so you should not let the stereotype be an obstacle for you. So don't treat the gender as a problem. So just choose what you think is most suitable for you. Choose the one that you really like. And another thing regarding gender is sometimes you can see that, for example, in a specific field, for example, in chemistry, in college, you may see probably like 40% to 50% female students. But when you go to graduate school, the percentage probably dropped to 20%. And when you try to pursue a professional field, that percentage keep dropping. So you can see the change in the percentage of women in this STEM field. And that may discourage you. And I think that some problem needs to be solved by a lot of factors, not just you. So to find a role model is super important. And sometimes I went to conferences and I'm trying to listen to how these female role model, how they work, and listen to their experience really helps. So don't feel discouraged and treat this one as an obstacle.
I would say I've had a similar experience to the other two speakers. I haven't had too much trouble with my gender, and in fact, the field that I'm in now is actually predominantly women. For whatever reason, public health microbiologists are, I would say, we're about 80% women or something. It's very high. So don't think that all fields in the sciences are predominantly men. There are some where there are definitely more women. But I never really found it to be too much of an obstacle. I think maybe the hardest thing is more, and this is not unique to STEM, but sometimes women are viewed as very emotional, or considered to be very like aggressive if they're assertive and that sort of thing. So I definitely have noticed that sort of thing in the workplace. It can really be hard to toe the line between, getting your point across and being authoritative versus being considered to be, too emotional or rude or that sort of thing. And I don't think that's unique to STEM. I think that's pretty universal, but at least in my fields, I would say that's a larger problem than just really the STEM aspect of it.
All right, yeah, thank you for sharing that. I agree. I think it's a great thing that there's not that much of like an obstacle for gender anymore. So I think that's just a good sign of the times of changing. So I think I will move on to the next question. So question 3, what are some of the shortcomings in how STEM is promoted and how can we improve that?
I'll get started. So regarding this question, my answer is specifically related to mathematics. So earlier I said that I was very ignorant when it came to know what to do with mathematics. I really thought that mathematics in the end was just arithmetics. That I thought that that was math. So I think that when it comes to mathematics, we are not very good at explaining what you can do with math, and that math is not just numbers. My friends are always shocked when they see my notes because there are no numbers. And they're always like, how's it possible? They're just symbols, but no numbers. You're a mathematician. And I'm like, well, yeah, but that's not math. Math is way more than that. And when it comes specifically to mathematics, I think that there is a stigma on it, in the sense that, for instance, when I go to a party and I say that I'm a mathematician, everybody's like, oh my God, you must be so smart. And I was so bad at mathematics. And I'm like, I'm not actually that smart. I am regularly smart. And I doubt that you were so bad in math because probably you had a bad teacher, or, you were taught math in a bad way. So I think that sometimes we think of certain fields of STEM as super difficult and therefore kind of like up there, unreachable, but that's not true. That's not true at all. And so what I really would like to say is that mathematics is for everybody. You just need to find your own way to learn it. Maybe that's like a little bit more complicated than learning, I don't know, history, because you need a little bit more skill involved. It's a little bit multitasking, but it is for everybody. Everybody can be extremely successful in mathematics, and there are a lot of applications, so specifically when you think about applied mathematics, in terms of computations, artificial intelligence, machine learning. The mathematics this is behind this is really deep, and also the mathematics behind many of some of the physics, the big physics questions is really, really deep. So don't think that mathematics is just 2 + 2. That's not it. And it's really for everybody.
Yeah, so I think one of the aspect I want to talk about is especially related to chemistry. So recently I read an article talking about how to reduce the cost of solar cells. So we see the solar panels on our roof and pretty common nowadays. And they were talking about how to bring the cost down of the solar panels in order to drive the solar industry more forward. But actually, if you read more about that relative field, you know that that's not the major factor, and there are so many other factors that are important. So I think one of the aspects we can address and improve is how to bring the public closer to the STEM field. So it's not mysterious anymore, and that won't intimidate the future students coming to the field. And looking at our current age, there are so many new careers that are based on STEM fields. It's not like the typical scientist working in a wet lab. So if you search on the YouTube channels, you can see how the STEM students can advocate the principle behind the physics, chemistry, and so many interesting things. And you can find the interesting channel about the college student performing a safe experiment in the garage of his parents. So that's all fun things. And also new career, which can combine STEM fields and maybe other fields are emerging. So that's all things we should consider. For example, there's a new career that my friend just stepped into. It's called scientific illustrator. So he has the sense and idea how science and chemistry work, but he's super into the idea of using 3D and computer technology to get the cool graphs. So he actually used his skill to introduce all the scientific ideas in the cool graphs to the public. I think that's really important, and that's some emerging and new things. And the new generation can actually consider, if you like both, why not combine them? That will be your advantage.
So I touched on this a little bit earlier, but I just think that there are so many different types of careers in STEM, and a lot of them are not well publicized. And I think students just don't know that they exist. And sometimes if you don't start working towards something early enough, by the time you find out about it, you're too far into your studies to divert towards that field, or it requires going back to school or maybe another year, you know, or another degree. Sometimes that's not financially viable. So it's really helpful for high school students and younger to become aware of the different types of STEM careers, not just the traditional, like, oh, an engineer is, you know, constructing bridges or something, versus like, what about environmental engineering? Are people aware that that exists? Or, you know, there's so many, when people think about careers in public health, I think mostly people think about public policy, but there's also more scientific based careers. There's people doing epidemiology and people like me working in the public health lab, testing specimens during outbreaks and, you know, doing, you know, bringing on new testing and that sort of thing. So there's lots of different types of careers. And I just think that you can't work towards something if you're not aware of it. And the other thing, you know, definitely touching on what Dr. Mattei said, for sure, I was told things like math is hard or engineering is for boys, you know, things like that. I feel like got really ingrained at a pretty young age. And I kind of thought to myself, well, I don't really care. I'm just going to do what I feel like is a good fit for me. But some people will fold to that societal pressure and do something else that they consider to be more gender appropriate, or some people would just think that things are too difficult and why try. And it's really easy to, if you've always been told that something's hard and then it is hard, you just get discouraged and give up. But I think it's like, it's very powerful to work through things too when it's difficult, and make your way through something that's maybe doesn't come naturally at first, but maybe you just need to learn a few things and then it all falls into place. So I think, yeah, people need to be aware that, you know, even if it doesn't come naturally to them, there might be another aspect of STEM that does. So.
Sorry, I would like to add one more thing related to this. One of the resources that I put in the chat is the website of the Mathematical American Association, but I put in the specific link to a book that's free to download, and it's called Living Proof, Stories of Resilience Along the Mathematical Journey. And it goes back to the fact that if you're struggling, you're not alone, and there are very successful mathematicians out there who wrote this book telling you stories about how hard it was for them. And you can find similar stories in other STEM fields. I know that we always sell this idea of success as if, oh, success is easy to reach, you know. No, it's not easy. It's a very complicated journey. You're going to struggle a lot. And there are people in the same situation like you are, but you go through it. So don't give up and try to find your way through it. So yeah, that book is really interesting, and that's why I posted the link there.
All right, thank you guys for your answers. If you guys don't have anything else to add or any more responses, I will move on to the fourth question, which is, if you were to summarize your message for girls and women in STEM, what would that message be?
Well, my first message, and it's not just for girls and women in STEM, but it's for everybody, is to ask as much as you can. I know that sometimes you don't even have you don't even know how to formulate the question. But right now you're thinking about your future and you don't know anything. Probably, I mean, I still don't know anything, but so really reach out to people, send emails. Some of the people you're going to reach out to will not reply, but others will reply. So the people I'm telling you to reach out to are, for instance, college professors. If you're planning to go to a certain college, maybe send out an email asking them for some resources, what type of student clubs they have in the department, what type of internship, if they have them, with some industry they have to offer. Just try to like deciding where to go to college and what to study is already very hard by itself. So try to make the decision, to take that decision by grabbing all the pieces of information that you can beforehand. So enrolling those mentorship programs, try to ask as many questions as you can, reach out to people, and don't be afraid. I mean, in the worst case scenario, they're not going to reply to your email. That's it. So do not be shy, but really try to reach out. And the second message is to try to be part of some student club where you find people who have your goals. So for instance, in the Department of Mathematics at San Francisco State University, we have many different clubs. One of them, called Mathematistas, is specifically targeting females, but there are other groups that are targeting more underrepresented minorities, for instance, or, there is a large variety, but really try to network, to create a support system of people who are going through the same issues that you have, people who will understand you, and who will be basically, your people during that period. When I did my PhD. It was a very small PhD program, and there was only another girl in my PhD program. Well, that girl is one of my best friends, even though we are very, very different. We would have never become friends if it hadn't been for our PhD program. But she's the only person in the whole world who could understand what was going on with me during that period. And it was super important for me to have her. So really try to create your support network. That's really important.
I guess my message is shorter. So I think first of all, you need a goal. No matter it's a long term or a short term, no matter you are going to change or adjust your goal in the near future, but you need to set your goal first of all, and then figure out what is the path leading to your goal. For example, if you want to go from SoCal to NorCal, you can decide you want to drive or you want to take a plane. So either way, if you want to go to college for a specific one and choose a specific career, you want to talk to alumni or your friend who have experience of the application or who study in that university to know what it's like. Is that the true university you like or not? And then once you build your goal and trying to figure out the route there, along the way, you may have the ups and downs. You will feel excited, you will feel very discouraged. But every day, tell yourself in the mirror, I can do this. So it will give you a lot of confidence. It actually helps. The positive message you deliver to yourself along the way really helps. Try to give you some positive message every day by yourself. And then lastly, don't be afraid to make changes. So for example, initially you may set the goal, I want to go to the X university. I cannot change the goal. Maybe along the way you change your mind. Oh, I found something different, something that I may be more interested in. Once you make the decision, don't be afraid to make changes. Just do the thing that you think is the most suitable and make you happy. So I think that would be the 3 aspects I want to deliver in my message.
I guess I would like to echo some of that to say, yes, pick a goal and work towards it for sure, but don't be afraid to do something different if it's not working for you. Especially like in graduate school, a PhD is much too long and grueling to do it for somebody else. You have to be passionate about your work to make it through something like that. And you should be passionate about your field of choice and your work and what you do, and it should make you enjoy the day, and your day should go quickly for the most part. And don't force yourself into something that someone else says is a good idea, like, oh, this field it pays well and they need lots of people. Well, if you try it and it doesn't seem like it's going to work for you, then you need to find something that's a better fit. The other thing I wanted to touch on was the fact that just because you're a woman in STEM doesn't mean you have to just be a career woman. If you want to have a family too, I think there is room to do that as well. I know it's really easy to feel like you have to stay really focused on building your career, and you might have to work a little harder than the men in your field to do that. And so you might feel like there's no room in my life for children or something like that, but I think there is. It's just, it can be a tough balancing act, and you have to think carefully about where you go and how supportive the organization or university or whatnot is of the family life balance, but I think it's definitely possible. In fact, my daughter will probably be running out here from her nap in a second.
Before we move on to the next question, I wanted to expand on a point, or ask Dr. Mattei to elaborate more on her point on like reaching out to professors or maybe even like professionals in the workplace, because I think this is like a really, really important point. Like at least as a high school student, for personal experience, like it was pretty hard to send emails to professionals or even like professors because you guys are busy. I think you guys are busy. Like I wanted to ask more like, how would we phrase it? Like if I am a high school student and I wanted to reach out to a professor or a professional like Mrs. Hallis, who is working in like microbiology, like at like a certain institute doing her job every day, what should I ask? Like how should I approach this? So I just want to ask that.
Well, my recommendation is that first of all, to do a little bit of research about the person you're going to email, so that you can, ask very specific questions. So for instance, if you want more information regarding the university, then try maybe to reach out, I don't know, to the chair of the department, for instance, or somebody who can direct you towards the right people to ask. Do not just randomly choose a faculty member and send them an email. So try to understand who you want to email. Like if instead you're really interested already in some research idea, then email the faculty member who is working on that research project and ask them, so how does it work? Like how do you have students in your lab? What classes do I need to take in order to start research? Kind of targeted question. Like I would not recommend to send an email saying, I'm a high school student, I'm applying for this school. What is your suggestion? That will not bring to anything, but like very specific questions. So if you have questions regarding research, email the person who does that research. Otherwise, supervisors. So on every department website, you can find the name of the advisors. So email them and they will tell you specifically what courses you have to take in order to get that major, or if you want a minor, what other courses you have to take. Just try to plan your route beforehand by emailing the right people. But again, advisors, maybe the chair of the department, and for research, the specific faculty members. And in industry, very similar. If you email somebody in industry with like general questions about how it is to work there, maybe try to find like some sort of supervisor who somebody who's not working on research specifically, but that's not my field, so I cannot say too much about it. But for academia, I would totally do this.
So as far as my industry goes, we occasionally do like tours of the lab, and that's a good way to find out more about what we do. I would encourage tours of labs in general. If you're interested in working in a laboratory environment, you can see the different types of testing that's done and the different instrumentation. Just get a feel for the types of people that work there and the kind of hours that are held and that sort of thing. I think that's a really powerful thing to do if you're looking towards laboratory work. And so if someone emailed me and asked, said they were interested in public health laboratories and can I set up a tour, then I could set them up to be able to come and see more, and then they could ask more questions in person at that time. So that's definitely an available resource a lot of the time. And I think a lot of laboratories would allow tours, although things are a little strange right now with COVID, but normally that's not too hard to put together.
Sorry, I also want to add one more thing. That's exactly also the reason why I mentioned those two mentorship programs, the one with the National Math Alliance and the one with the Association for Women in Mathematics, because there you will be paired with somebody who can help you through this. So who will tell you, okay, email this a person, or, you know, so I strongly encourage anybody to enroll in a mentorship program. I listed only the one in mathematics because that's my field, but the majority of the societies in STEM have those programs. So I think that if you do just a very quick Google search, you'll be able to find them.
All right. Oh, Mrs. Q or Dr. Q.
Yeah, so just one more tip about the email courtesy, because we do receive emails from high school students who want to join the lab, but you can tell who actually write the email specifically for you or they mass copy paste the whole message, because this is a real example. I received one email from a high school student. You can easily tell the email was copy pasted because it's inconsistent font size. And also in the body of the email, it mentioned like, oh, I want to do microbiology research in your lab, but that's definitely not my field. And you can easily find out if you say you are interested in my research, at least to know what that is. So I don't encourage you to send the message email to like 12 professors in one department. Be specialized to find what you are really interested in, instead of just like try to see, oh, who is going to reply my email. So some courtesy like, oh, I'm really interested in your research, that will actually make the professor more interesting to reply your email because they feel it's respected.
All right. I think if there's nothing else to add, we can move on to the open-ended Q&A section. So I have one question already. Kyla asks, can you ask when is the right time? Oh, Kyla asks, when is the right time to start emailing like professors or professionals? When is like the best time to reach out?
Well, I'd say that it really depends on where you are at. Like, do you already have a rough idea about what you want to do? Like if you're still wondering about the STEM field that you want to be in, then probably you need to wait a second and do a little bit of research, and then eventually email the advisors for the major and minor programs if you have specific questions regarding the program. Or if you know already that you're interested in a very specific field in STEM, and then, you know, email the faculty member who works on that. So I guess that during your high school career, you will reach those points at different times, depending on how you are. So I wouldn't say like there is a specific time to do this. When you're ready, when you know a little bit more about what you want to do about your future.
Yeah, like when I was looking for a lab to research in as an undergraduate, I waited until I had some coursework completed and I knew a little bit more and also had a better understanding of what I was interested in. And then I approached specific professors whose labs I wanted to work in at my university. When I was applying to my PhD program, I contacted professors whose research I was interested in before completing my applications, so that when I was completing my applications, I could mention the professors whose labs I was interested in, and if they were interested in working with me and that sort of stuff in my cover letters and essays and that sort of thing. So I think it really depends on what you're trying to get out of the emails that you're sending.
All right, I'll move on to another question. Let me find it. Here you go. Kira asks, how can I become more educated or involved with STEM? So like info on research projects, mentorships, summer programs, or labs. Where would I like find research programs like this or projects like this?
So for this program, I can only say for chemistry. So for chemistry, there are like big funding agencies. For example, the ACS, American Chemical Society, they have the SEED program. So for whatever research lab which sponsored the SEED program, they usually recruit high school students to do summer research. And you can just search like ACS SEED program to see the nearby university or nearby research that they are recruiting high school students, first of all. And once you find out the pool of the research lab, you can try to locate which is the direction you are interested in. Once you do the homework, you can start emailing and contacting the professor. Usually they are pretty responsive. And be clear in your title. For example, ACS SEED program summer research opportunity. And you can briefly talk about who you are. For example, I'm a high school student in which school, and I'm interested in your research in this field. Can I join your lab for the summer research? Could we schedule a short meeting to discuss more details? So it doesn't have to be complicated. Show what you want to do and have more discussion. And another tip is when you're contacting the professor, remember them, some of them have like hundreds or thousands of email unread. Like if you don't get the response like in a week, so it's not a bad idea to do a follow-up email, resend the email again. So probably it will pop up again and reminds them, oh, I saw the email and I forgot to reply. So that would be a good idea because sometimes they want to reply, but probably they are distracted by something else and forget about it. So that would be the first opportunity I recommend for chemistry. And the second one is actually to look for the NSF, National Science Foundation. So sometimes they have some high school summer research opportunities, which are sponsored by different research labs you can look into. And these big funding agencies, they usually do that. And most research labs are really happy to recruit high school students. So just be brave to contact the professor you want to do research with and wait for a response. So that'll be my suggestion.
I'm really sorry to interrupt, but in the interest of time, I just want to move onwards to the last question. So the last question would be, what are some tasks or roles high school students play at your institutions as an intern, if they were able to like secure an internship?
We don't generally have high school students. It's usually more college interns that we get at the public health laboratory, and typically in our water lab where there are less HIPAA regulations. It's a little bit difficult when you're doing medical diagnostic testing to have a lot of internships because there are very critical life-altering mistakes that can be made. I'm sure there are better places for high school students to intern. I was actually intern not during high school, but right after I worked at Lawrence Berkeley Lab as a chemical inventory intern. So there are things like that, like summer jobs.
All right, I think we are almost out of time. So let's just, I think just say our congratulations, because thank you so much for coming to our speakers. It is 1:32, so we are like a bit overboard. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here. Thank you so much for responding all of these questions and sharing your experience. And thank you for like participation. I think we got a really good amount of questions. So yeah, thank you guys so much. I don't know really. I said it
Thank
3
you.
times.
Thank
but
you.
to show sincerity.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for coming.